All right. Can you state your name and the department you work for?
My name is Justin Richards, and I work for the Carlsbad Police Department.
Perfect. What is your current job description at your department?
I am the rank of corporal, but I'm currently assigned as a detective and a task force officer at the North County Regional Gang Task Force in North County, San Diego.
Do you use social media as a tool in your investigations?
We do in a number of different ways. Prior to this assignment, I was assigned to our Vice Narcotics Unit at Carlsbad Police Department, and we used that pretty extensively with different investigations we did. We were assigned to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which goes pretty in depth with social media and how the younger kids are using that in today's world.
All right. What kind of social media do you use, like Twitter, Facebook?
I'm not super well versed in it, but I'm pretty avid when it comes to Facebook. I know some people do use Twitter. There's like Yik Yak and a bunch of other ones that the young kids are using that the ICAC task force pays attention to.
Okay.
We don't so much in the gang investigations anymore, but Facebook still is pretty prevalent.
All right. Does your department use social media to communicate with the public?
Yeah, our public information officer is actually a community service officer specifically assigned to addressing public needs and sending out press releases and that kind of thing. They have created both a Twitter and a Facebook account, which they send out news blasts of cases that we're working on that we may need public's help for. They may have because it's in today's society, everybody's on social media. They're not paying attention to names or anything like that. You can reach a lot more people on social media in a matter of 2 seconds to click a mouse, whereas if you fill pamphlets, sending them out by mail and waiting for a response, that just is not. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Let's see here. Do you have any special training when you using social media, or were you pretty much self-taught?
A little bit of both. Obviously, growing up, kind of younger generation, not quite as young as yourself anymore, but
exactly.
When I first started, I was 22-ish, so I was still pretty young, still savvy what we were doing. I had a Facebook account myself, kind of did that whole thing. Back when MySpace was around, kind of learned how that worked. Never really got into the whole Twitter thing. But I've also attended multiple classes on internet investigations as it pertains to the crimes against children. And those really delve into the social media aspect and how the kids are meeting these guys online or girls online, whatever, the predators that they're meeting online, and how those predators are using social media as a tool to basically prey on younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go up to, gosh, it was 2014, I think, for a 3-day family abuse and child abuse conference in which we really delved into the social media and kind of creating a to where we could see what was going on in like public forums.
Okay.
And how we could kind of maneuver around Facebook to get the information that we needed to have successful investigations.
Okay. would you say that it's encouraged to use social media for your investigations?
I would say so. Obviously, you have to take it with a grain of salt because anything on the internet, it's not always reality.
True.
But I think there's a lot of usefulness for law enforcement to be savvy in how social media works, where they can use it in their investigations. Even if it's just for a little bit of information, I mean, people can as to where they're at. I mean, we've used social media to figure out where people who are wanted were because they are smart enough to check in the locations they're at, and we go visit them there. It makes our job a little bit easier if we're smart enough and savvy enough to use those tools at our disposal.
Okay. Do you personally have any cases where you use social media?
Yeah, like I said, I've had cases where people have checked in that I've been looking for, and they check in or post a picture of themselves. I recognize the backdrop. If I recognize the background of, hey, that's this street, I know exactly where that's at. I know where they're at right now, and sure, there when I go down the street. I've used it for multiple times identifying where people are at, also who people see it with. In gang investigations, a lot of what we do is based on association with other gang members, because a lot of times they won't claim to be gang members, yet their social media is riddled with pictures of them throwing gang signs, holding guns, hanging out with other documented gang members. All that stuff is very useful for me when I document gang members as gang members. Part of the criteria for those are associating with gang members, using gang signs. All that stuff plays into my ability to document them and have all that information for the court to go to a trial at some point to say, hey, I didn't just out of nowhere pick this guy out of thin air and say he's a gang member. All this stuff shows he's a gang member.
Okay.
So yeah, I've used social media pretty extensively in that sense.
Gotcha. I think we're about on the last question here. Do you think that social media can be used to solve and prevent crimes?
Our department has been pretty forward thinking in the way that they've been using it recently. Whereas in the past we've kind of lacked in that area, so I think it's a good thing that we're actually using the tools to our advantage. Like I said, you can reach a lot more people just by the click of a mouse versus sending out a bunch of information pamphlets. Something we've done recently on Facebook or Twitter through our PIO, our Public Information Officer, is let them know people are leaving their purses and valuables inside their car, or they're leaving their cars unlocked, and we're seeing a huge increase in crime, vehicle burglaries or thefts from vehicles. And those crimes are really crimes of opportunity. So if we can try and educate the public as to what we're seeing from our perspective of the crimes that are occurring, why they're occurring, and ways to prevent them, we can essentially kind of curb the crime rate, if you will. Okay. And we can affect the crime rate just through educating the public. They lock their cars, take their valuables out of it. It prevents any reason for the crooks to break into their cars. I mean, if there's nothing there to steal, they're not going to risk breaking a window. They're not going to risk getting caught for nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
They want something, and they're only going to do it if they see something worth of value.
Okay. And then would you say that with social media today, do you think it could be a hazard to use it as a police officer?
Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit on that one.
Yeah. So do you think that using social media could be a hazard for law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's some potential for abuse. not so much on law enforcement's part, but for law enforcement officers having social media accounts, I mean, you expose yourself to a lot of issues if you are somehow involved in some sort of high-profile incident. People can almost immediately identify who you are, where you live, what your kids look like.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some serious reservations about social media on a personal basis,
Okay.
and the privacy issues that occur at that point. Hazards as far as the professional side of it. I mean, I think there's always potential for abuse when you have different investigative tools.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you have regulation and oversight as a supervisor, you have a supervisor who knows what their people are doing, that they are doing it right. I don't see a problem with it.
Okay.
I think it's a great tool for law enforcement in today's world because everybody is on it. Everybody has an account. Everybody has like a Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information on the internet,
You're starting to cut out. What was
and
that
it's
last one?
I can click to a lot of it. So
Okay.
sorry, say that again.
You were cutting out. Can you say that last part again?
Saying there's a lot more information nowadays on social media than we would have had 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet has changed policing in a very. So you have to use advantage, or even, like I said, it's a much more proficient way to educate the public than it will.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that concludes our interview here.
Okay.
Perfect.